Okay, so what we have here is our beef tongue. Definitely not a cheap cut of meat. Didn't expect it to be that expensive. So, let's get this thing opened. So beef tongue has a sort of like a cat's tongue. It's kind of tough. So it's a membrane that has to get removed. So the way that beef broth is made is it's just boiled down, or water and beef boiled together, and you lose a lot of the flavor from the beef tongue. So what we're going to do today is we're going to boil it in beef broth to hopefully keep some of the flavor in the tongue. Is because you can take a knife right now and try and get this membrane off, but the easiest way to get it off is to essentially just cook it, and then it will start peeling off a lot easier. But before we get it ready to start boiling, let's go ahead and trim it up a little bit. Not very much work to do on this one. It's looking pretty good, but if you want to take some fat off, this would be the time to do it. Take out a couple of the straggly pieces here. Max is sitting right here, so Max treat. Okay, so let's go ahead and get this thing ready for boil. So I got here a nice little aluminum pan, and we'll have some beef broth. We'll get this thing submerged in here. So now that that's done, we'll go ahead and add in some whole peppercorns. We'll add in some kosher salt, a few bay leaves, Max treat, and we'll chop an onion, half of one at least. Some fresh garlic. See if you can get a view of that. We could easily throw this in a pot and boil it on the stove, but this is a barbecue channel, so let's get the pit ready.
You gotta wait.
We might not be able to get too much smoke out of these things because they are going to be submerged in the beef broth, but if we can, let's give it a shot. While we let that charcoal and that wood burn down, let's go ahead and put our beef tongue on. Now, if you can see over here, I have some blocking logs in there. Those blocking logs are used for like a brisket or some ribs that I don't want real direct heat on them. I'm going to go ahead and take them out because we want all the heat in there. So as the thing cooks, we're going to have to keep adding in some more beef broth. So it's taken 2 of those containers, so I bought an extra one just to top it off. Alright, so our charcoal's ready. We're going to shut this down and we'll come back every hour or so.
Right, we'll go back out there soon.
Alright, just a quick update.
I did cover this thing. It seemed like it wasn't getting hot fast enough, and I don't really want to eat dinner too late tonight. And I have been adding just charcoal now. That big log in there has been in there for quite a while, but just charcoal, just trying to get heat and not waste the wood. So we're gonna keep letting it go. All right, so we're about hour 4. We're gonna check where we're at. We're looking for about 200 degrees for this thing to be fully tender. A little windy here. All right. Now it feels pretty tender, but we're only probing at about 180 degrees. But it's looking real nice. Point, we can say that it's fully cooked, and it is probing tender. Oh, it's windy here. Get that out of here. It's probing pretty tender, but we're gonna let this go. We're about hour 4 or so in, so we have time. All right, so I pulled the foil off this thing probably about 5 minutes ago, and we've kind of hit a stall. So let's check the temperature real quick. So we're probing at about 189, 190 degrees, and it's probing really tender. So I think this is about a good time to go ahead and take it off, and we'll let this thing rest. All right, so we brought this tongue up to about 190 degrees. We've let it rest for about 15 minutes to let it cool down so we can handle it a little bit, because now we're gonna have to start stripping off this membrane. So we're gonna take a nice sharp knife and kind of cut into it. Alright, so it took a little bit of work to get that membrane off, but we've got it off. We used the knife in some areas that was a little bit too hard to get off, but now we're down to the soft part of the meat. We're going to use Rob's beef rub for this cow tongue. So I mean, you could technically eat this the way that it is right now. We temped it out at about 190 degrees. And so it is edible, but it doesn't really have too much flavor on it. So that's why we're using the Rob's rub. We're gonna throw it on the Weber grill. We're gonna see how it comes out. You could just use salt and pepper on this, but why not try and get some extra flavor out of it? All right, so we've got the grill fired up. Let's go ahead and place it on there. I'm gonna do an offset, close the lid, and let it go for about another hour. All right, so we're about hour 6, and we're gonna start probing this thing. About 203 degrees, 198. I mean, and it's probing really tender. I would say let's take this thing off. All right, we've let this thing rest for about 15-20 minutes or so. Let's go ahead and cut into it. So we'll cut off the little thin end and start cutting little steaks of it. This thing is still piping hot. I mean, as you can see, it's still nice and juicy. Let's go ahead and rip into this thing. Oh, it's still. It's nice and tender. So it tastes no different than any kind of beef that you have. It's extremely tender.
Oh, that looks good. Let's go ahead and give that a try. Mmm. Mmm. So good. All right, guys. So that's gonna do it for today's video. Go ahead and like and subscribe. I really enjoy doing this, showing you how to cook, showing you how I do things when it comes to barbecue. And if you like the videos, go ahead and like and subscribe. I'd love to keep this channel growing. All right, until next time.